And it was very convincing. It was very Roman in this respect because it's consistent with the legal tradition of our country and the Romans before us. But there was also a point of that. The Roman law developed slightly from that position, particularly in one case which is not relevant for taxation, but it is relevant for civil law, I will say today. In Roman law of the Republic, the master, the Roman citizen, has a right of life and death on the slave, for instance, that were considered nothing more than things like animals. And as a matter of fact, a Roman citizen could have killed a slave without being convicted, because in that moment he was not killing a human being. It was just like destroying, crashing a glass or breaking a computer. That's the point. But in the development of the Roman law, after centuries, there was a modification of this interpretation delivered by an emperor in the 2nd century, when he said, well, as a matter of fact, is not that power is not appropriate. We understand that slaves are things. We accept that slaves are not human beings. But even we accept this point, you just can't kill that kind of things without a reason. It's in your interest. If you do that, you are abusing, the first time, you are abusing of your right. You are abusing of your freedom. There's not somebody else right in contrast with your own. But it's a limit that it's a part of your legal position. What happened in the centuries of the development of the Roman law? What has happened? Christianity was introduced in empire. And the emperors were rulers of the empire, but also influenced by this new religion or theory under which slaves were human beings like senators, Romans, etc. And the number of emperors tried to strike a balance between the geometrical approach of the Roman law and these new necessities. Abuse of law, you are abusing if you are killing a slave. And this abuse finds its roots in religion. Today we would say in politics. And here the presentation, or here the lecture become a little more dangerous, since we are just lawyer here and we cannot step into these topics. But just to give the idea, what is the true origin of the abuse of law? So a number of behaviors are abusive for half of this audience, while for the other half, for instance, are absolutely normal. It depends on the point of view. Okay, so we are not relying on religion or philosophy. What are the legal foundations of the general anti-avoidance rule today in Italy? When the Supreme Court had to find some principle to tackle or to contrast some very specific behavior of the taxpayer, it found the principle in Article 53 of our Constitution, the principle of the ability to pay, and Article 3, the principle of economic solidarity. The point is that every taxpayer, every individual, every company who or which is entering into an aggressive tax planning scheme, or who or which is abusing of its freedom, as a matter of fact, is violating Article 53, the principle of solidarity, the principle of the ability to pay. That is the rule/principle that it's used nowadays by our Supreme Court to justify that kind of approach to tax avoidance, that kind of approach to the abuse of law. Solidarity. And this is a part. I forgot to mention the case, but I tried to translate in English just a part of it. The case is 30057/2009 of the Italian Supreme Court. And the point is, every business operation, every economic decision taken and entered into with the sole or main purpose of saving taxes is a violation of the ability to pay principle and of the duty of solidarity, which is a part of our Constitution. That's the point. It's very strong. It's very aggressive perhaps for a half of this audience. But this is the situation we are experiencing now in Italy. And of course, there are advantages and disadvantages of this approach. This is a catch-all clause. We don't need any longer a tailor-made or specific targeted anti-avoidance rule. Because now, the Revenue Service, my former colleagues, are authorized by the Supreme Court to reassess business combination, contracts, mergers and acquisition in the light of this overarching principle, this general rule of solidarity. So this allows a more flexible approach, a stronger position of the tax office. But there are, of course, also some disadvantages that were pinpointed by by lawyers, by accountants, by attorneys in my country. First of all, the lack of certainty, for this understanding in the business relation. The need for more intensive use of rulings or advanced rulings in order to know in advance what does the IRS think an operation is, abuse or not. The problem of legal certainty is, you see, it's a trade-off. It's a general trade-off. You want more solidarity, you lose in certainty. You want more certainty, you give leeway for a more aggressive tax planning scheme. You can't have both by now. And of course, the third point is the centrality of the executive power, the ever-increasing importance of the Italian Revenue Service in defining what abuse is or what they think abuse is. And when I had to discuss this situation, state of the art, with my students or some of my colleagues, I generally use an example which is taken by philosophy. So you see the situation is getting worse and worse. I used Romans and now ancient Greeks. But it's taken, I promised you that the former one was the last slide concerning Romans. I never talked about Greeks. So you see I'm abusing of another example of that, isn't it? The point is that it's well known for those of you who study mathematics or comes of economics. It's a paradox which is used in physics, in mathematics, and in a number of science, pure science today. But in my opinion, it's also good, it's taken from the physics of Aristotle, but it's also good to, it's my personal position, to define what is the situation in the fight, in the struggle against tax avoidance.